speaker series brought to you by MAP Boosters and MAP Student Leadership. I wanted to introduce the speaker series student leadership co-chairs, Katie and Alec, who will introduce our speakers.
Hello everyone, my name is Alec Kruka and I'm the head of the Smash-In and Speaker Series for MAP Leadership.
Hi, my name is Kitty and I'm the co-head for the Smash-In Speaker Series.
So tonight we have a very special guest, Scott McGrew from NBC Bay Area News.
He is an award-winning news anchor and reporter at NBC News Bay Area. And tonight we're pleased that you can join us. And then we're pleased you're all here. We have today's raffle prize is a private tour guide at NBC News Bay Area. And if you didn't do that yet, put your first and last name on the raffle ticket, and then give it to Kaylee.
Okay, I think. All right, thank you, and here's our
All right,
speaker.
right on. Thank you, guys. So I don't use PowerPoint very much. I'm mostly just going to talk with you, but I'm going to make a brief exception here and start with good cue. That was well done. Very good. I'm going to just start with a couple clips so that if you have no idea who is this guy who's talking to me, this is my job.
NBC Bay Area News starts now.
And right now at 11, an arson investigation at an abandoned warehouse in downtown San Jose. We'll tell you who investigators think may be responsible for the flames. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Scott McGrew.
And I'm Chris Sanchez. Our traffic cam was rolling just moments after the fire broke out.
No, we cut out Chris because you don't want to hear Chris, you want to hear me. So
cut that as well.
A historic day for the San Francisco Chronicle. For the first time in its 150-year history, a woman is in charge of the newspaper. The Hearst Corporation named Audrey Cooper editor-in-chief yesterday. The 37-year-old was the Chronicle's managing editor. Bit of irony here. Cooper is now leading a newspaper she couldn't get a sniff at 15 years ago. She applied for an internship 3 years in a row. Never got a call back. So that's the newscast, and then this next one is the TV show I do on Sundays. This one really pays the bills for us. We have a lot of good fun. This week, a political activist searches for a Twitter user who may not exist. Andy Weir, author of The Martian, is back with a new book and a job interview where you bring your spouse. ThoughtSpot's Ajit Singh will explain why. Our reporters, John Swartz, now with Barron's, and Heather Somerville of Reuters. This week on Press Heat. Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott McGrew. I appreciate all of you watching, but I really have one person in mind this morning, Amy Mack. Good morning, Amy. How are you? Amy has a Twitter account. There she is. She posts largely anti-Islamic messages, and she tweets a lot. On average, 24 tweets a day. She also indicates she's part of the RARE Foundation, that's Resistance Against Islamic Radicals. Now, here's the thing. It is hard to find evidence Amy Mack exists. If you do exist, Amy, please let us know. We have direct messaged you. We have tried to contact the foundation. That doesn't seem to exist either. And we've run your name through all kinds of powerful software that journalists use looking for you. Now, General Michael Flynn seems to think you exist. He's copied you in on a number of tweets. And the New York Times quoted your tweet in an article titled, "Women Who Like Donald Trump." Maureen Irwin is a liberal political consultant who started the hunt for Amy and wrote about it in the San Francisco Examiner Online, joined by Heather Somerville of Reuters and John Swartz now of Barron's. Thanks for being with us this morning. Let's make it really clear off the top. Amy Mack, assuming she exists in the first place, hasn't really done anything illegal or anything, right? She hasn't done anything wrong.
No, not that I'm aware of. No. As far as I can tell, she or whoever is behind this account just tweets all day.
All right, so that's what I do. You can hit the lights. Who's ever in charge of lights? We'll just dim them a couple more times with a couple other things. So that's what I do. I want to begin, though, by talking about what you do and MAP. I had a tour of MAP last week. I am thrilled to death with what you are doing. STEM is super important, science, technology, engineering, and math. I get that. We're all talking in the national conversation about STEM. MAP is super cool because, yes, you have to have STEM, but yes, you've got to have media as well. STEM is the national conversation, right? I mean, people are talking about it. Media literally is the conversation. If you're involved in media, no, you're not building the thing, but you're the one talking about the thing. You direct the conversation. You're in charge of the conversation. And the amount of power you get out of that is tremendous. So, some of you will be engineers, some of you will be doctors, some of you may get involved in the media. They're all incredible careers. But let me say, media drive the national conversation. Everything. Now, that could be YouTube, and it could be podcasts, and it could be Snapchat. That still counts as media, right? It all drives the national conversation. Do you still study de Tocqueville in early American history? He's a French guy who wrote about America. He was a reporter, and what he wrote about became very important literature, but he was a reporter fundamentally. The Jungle by Upton Sinclair writes about the meat industry in Chicago, freaks out the entire United States, becomes important American literature. He was a reporter. The autobiography of Malcolm X, really technically reporting, right? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you heard those guys? Reporters. I mean, weren't they? They may have been reporting after the fact, but they wrote down what happened and became reporters in that sense. And Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the autobiography of Malcolm X, Elie Wiesel's Night, talking about the Holocaust, these all become incredibly important to the international conversation. And technically, they're all media. So, even if you don't have, even if you don't choose a career in media, I think it's critically important that you understand how media work, and that's again something that you're learning in MAP. Because you are going to be involved in consuming media, you're going to be making media, because you're doing Twitter and you're doing Snapchat and you're doing YouTube and you're doing all that stuff. But you're consuming it as well. You saw the President of the United States had a fake media awards this afternoon. The website crashed, by the way, which is funny because on Twitter he used to criticize President Obama for the Obamacare website crashing. You are consuming media and you have to be able to choose what is real and what is not. And I think MAP is going to help you with a lot of that too. Because I promise you there are a lot of Americans, adult Americans, who don't have the faintest idea what is real and what is not in media, and they're falling for some pretty dumb stuff. My history, I went to school in Iowa. I started my first job in Macon, Georgia, carrying my own camera about 90 miles south of Atlanta, making, and I'm not kidding, $250 a week. A week is $12,000 a year. My parents paid my car insurance. I went up to Toledo, Ohio, was up there. It's a steel town for about a year, out to Salt Lake City, and now out here to do it here. The reason that I am a reporter is because I am inherently super, super curious. I do have a slide here that I want to show you, and hopefully, yeah, that's good enough. We don't need to be dimming lights all the time. It's a freight train, right? Okay. See the front of the freight train where the engineer sits? The next locomotive rather, is facing backwards, and then the third locomotive is facing forwards. Why? Does anybody have a guess?
They can go the other direction.
Oh, so they can go the other direction. And it turns out they go backwards and forwards just fine. So you may not care. I care enormously. This bugs me. I need to know why is the second locomotive facing backwards. And I realize not a lot of freight trains go through Saratoga. But every time I see this, it bugs me. So this makes me a good reporter. My point is, my talent is going, why would that be? All right, well, I'll give you the answer. Good question. So it can go backwards. Well, it has a reverse gear. They can go backwards just as easily as they go forward. Maybe it's that, it wears out going one way, and so every once in a while they stick and they turn it backwards and run it the other way. That's not the answer either. The answer is this simple. The front one's got to face forward, right? I mean, the engineer's got to be seeing where he's going. After that, it doesn't matter which way they face. And it's really hard to turn a freight train around on a track, right? You really can't do it. So they just hook it up in whatever direction it happened to be at the time. And that's the answer as to why the second freight train may or may not be facing, or a locomotive may or may not be facing backwards. Now, if you think that's cool, you might be a reporter. If you don't think it's cool, you got kind of a long next 30 minutes. All right, so I know TV news. Obviously, there's newspapers, there's radio, there are all these different ways of communicating. I know TV news. How is TV news different? First of all, it's speed. A newspaper comes out once a day. And that's a lot. I mean, that's often. But we have 4 or 5 newscasts every day. We're never more than a couple of hours away from a newscast. And so we do things very, very, very quickly. We have a lot of newscasts. In a newspaper, it may be that the San Francisco Chronicle yesterday had 114 pages to it, or 116, or 130, or 110. It doesn't matter. It's a newspaper, right? They print what they need to print. A television newscast lasts a half an hour, or in our case of the morning news, 2.5 hours. You can't just run out of news. You can't say, well, that was it. I mean, we've got 10 minutes to go in the newscast, but we kind of told you everything there was to tell you. So, bye. So you've constantly got to feed this beast with news and information because you have no choice. You have to fill the entire half an hour newscast. It has to be incredibly simple. Television is one of those sorts of this person killed this person and this is why sort of thing. Because in a newspaper, the New York Times, you can go back and say, no, wait, hold on. I'm going to read that again. In television, you can't. It's gone. We've already said it. We've moved on to the next thing. So television news is incredibly simple, not in its ideas or in the way that we present it, but in the words that we present it as well. We've got to get to the very basics of the story. I've got a couple of slides here. I'll just click through them. Maybe this one's a lights thing. Where's my... Yes, please. Thank you, Kitty. Take you a little tour around the newsroom. The photographer completely screwed this one up. Because that's me in the background. That's a floor crew in our studio. That's our Mike Inoue, our traffic anchor. I'm sorry if I'm standing in front of your particular view. Some of the various writers and producers who handle our news. That's one of our chief producers handling the morning news. That's a director who picks the camera angles, and another director, and another. One of our producers, more producers. Is anybody noticing a pattern, by the way? A lot of producers. A lot of screens. It's a lot of women. And I'll get back to that later. I obviously could have picked any, I could have just faked this, right? But no, but the case is, it's a lot of women. There's my co-anchor and very best friend, Laura. And here we are doing the news in the morning. And there we are as well. All right, you can hit the lights again. One of the things that we were talking about is simple. And I'm going to give you a little test on simple. Is this. Paul Robinson, the principal at Saratoga High School, announced today the entire faculty of the high school will travel to Sacramento on Thursday for a colloquium in new teaching methods. Speaking there will be anthropologist Margaret Mead and Robert Meadard Hutchins, the president, should be president, of the University of Chicago. This is a press release. Can anybody simplify that for me? Nora Ephron, by the way, was the person who came up with this paragraph. Oh, come on, somebody. What's the most important thing in there? Anyway, what's the most important thing in there? Yes?
Paul Robinson announced a faculty-wide field trip to Sacramento.
That sounds good. Let me get another one. We'll get 3. I'm not going to quit until we get 3.
The entire staff of Saratoga High School will go to Sacramento to learn new teaching methods.
Good. One more. None of you are wrong, by the way. I said with 3, now we're just going to have to wait, and we're all just going to have to stand here and look at each other until somebody volunteers something. You volunteer something. You know you're going to be wrong, because that's the whole trick, right? Is this is a trick question. Go ahead.
The principal of Saratoga High School told the staff that they would be going on a trip to learn new teaching techniques.
Here's the lead to that story. No school tomorrow. Right? That's the simplicity of that, right? There are no teachers tomorrow. By the way, this is not true. I know, right? I'm not even sure Margaret Mead is still alive. There is no school tomorrow, and that's the answer to that. All right, a couple of myths of media. We're liberals. That one's actually true. We are liberals. It is completely factually true. There's a reason for it, and that is we're mostly artists. My real job is to write. I write the things that you saw in there. The, hey, good morning, Amy, how are you sort of thing. I wrote all that for myself. And then I perform it. I hate that word because it's really not about performance. It's about getting information across. But I perform it on television. I am fundamentally an artist, as is everyone else there. We have incredibly talented photographers. They're artists. We have incredibly talented editors who put together the pictures and the video together. They're artists. Artists tend to be liberal. I like your out of state, very good. Artists tend to be liberals. It's just a fact. Accountants tend to be good at math, right? There's a scientific connection between being good at math and being good at music, or being interested in music. I mean, that's been proven. I can say that accountants, generally speaking, are either interested in music or are pretty good musicians, or probably play an instrument. It's the same sort of thing. So when people throw that accusation, the media is terribly, terribly liberal, they're actually kind of right. We're a bit left of center. But there's a fundamental reason for it, and it's not because of some sort of hidden conspiracy or anything. It just happens to be true. There's a myth that we're coordinated, that we all know a secret that you guys don't, and we work to make sure that we present everything. We're all going to attack Trump. We're all going to do this together. We can barely get coordinated in our own office. There is absolutely no coordination between ABC and CBS and CNN and NPR and those sorts of things about what it is we're going to say. I absolutely promise you that for sure. There is a myth that television news people are a little bit dumb. You see that in movies a lot. I can assure you we're not dumb. We do speak simply in ways that the New York Times reporter doesn't. And yes, we use a lot of hairspray. And yeah, we actually do use a little makeup. But it doesn't make us necessarily dumb. We just present everything in a much different fashion. We're sexist. There have been problems, and including NBC, by the way, not my television station, but the network, with sexism and inappropriate behavior, etc. We really are, and that's where I'm going to bring you back to that woman-centric newsroom. And that wasn't just me picking slides. Those were random pictures. My boss is named Stephanie. Her boss is, she's my news director. Her boss, who runs the entire television station, is named Linda. And the person who runs the NBC-owned television stations across the United States, whose name escapes me, but she's a woman as well. So my boss is a woman, and my boss's boss is a woman. My boss's boss's boss is a woman. And that's as far as I know, even up the food chain. As far as I know, the next person could be a woman as well. So it's one of the things that we've done really well, and we're really proud of it. And my last myth, actually second to last myth, is that we're cruel jerks. You can use jerks, or you can use some other terrible word. Anybody see the movie Nightcrawler? Yeah, okay. It's about a stringer who shoots blood and flames and those sorts of things. It really isn't. We do divorce ourselves from, when the house burns down, we feel bad for the guy, but most are like, oh, those are good flames. We've got to put that on TV. But that's our job. I think firefighters are probably sometimes excited when they pull up to a house and it's totally on fire, because that's their job, and they like doing their jobs. But we are not the cruel sort of people that movies tend to tell us. Last myth is that we're well paid. If you're on television, you must be well paid, because people on television are stars and they make lots of money. I can guarantee you, and we talked about how much money I made to begin with, that is not true at the beginning. It gets a lot better as you move up the food chain, I do promise you that. But journalists do not do anything for the money, and we'll come back around that, on that money thing. So why do I do what I do other than the whole I'm curious in the train thing? I got to fly in an F-16 just after the 2001 terror attacks. They had F-16s that were patrolling the Golden Gate Bridge, going back and forth. So remember, we didn't know what was going to happen next. And they were making sure that somebody didn't attack the Golden Gate Bridge. And I got on the phone, I called the Air Force, and I said, do any of those F-16s have a back seat? And they said, yeah. And I said, well, I would like to go in the back seat. And so I got to fly in an F-16 above the Golden Gate Bridge for hours, and we were refueled air to air. It was incredible. And it was one of those reminders as to why I do the job that I do. I got to, and this is not a happy story, but it is an illustrative story, got to see an execution. Executions are witnessed by the media because it's our job to be the watchdogs of society, right? This was in Utah. I had lived in Utah for a number of years, worked in Utah for a number of years. And Utah, did anybody know Utah's method of execution?
Electric chair?
No, not electric chair, thank God.
Injection?
You can choose lethal injection. Well, let's go through all of them. What else is left?
Firing squad.
Firing squad.
That was my second.
Firing squad. I have seen a firing squad. The person, was kitty distance away. And I have seen a firing squad. Now, I'm not going to lie, it was awful and yucky and sad and all those sorts of things. But, that's one of those things where you think, good God, I've flown in an F-16 and I've seen a firing squad. Those are opportunities, not that I want to see another firing squad. I'll give you a happier one. I've been to the Playboy Mansion. Yeah. All right, let's talk a bit about where media's been and where it's going in the future. I think most of you are bright enough to understand that 25 years ago, media was very different. People got newspapers delivered every day. Some people got a newspaper in the morning and a newspaper in the evening. You waited until the newscast came on, either on the radio or television, to find out what had happened that day. All of this obviously has very much changed. Has anybody seen the movie Anchorman?
Of course.
Excellent. It starts with a narrator with a voiceover that says, there was a day in which the anchorman was king. TV news was king. And everything the anchorman said was accepted as total truth. That's a true story. I mean, not the whole Anchorman movie, but that part of it is a true story. This idea that there were just these select few number of people who told you what happened in the world, and you had to wait for them to get around to telling you. You had to wait for the newspaper to show up. You had to wait for the radio to tell you. You had to wait for the television. Obviously, that's all changed now. I mean, we can all dip into our pocket and check and see what's going on in the world. That has changed tremendously. It's not hard to figure out what happened to newspapers. Very few people subscribe to print newspapers anymore. It really wasn't the it really wasn't the availability of websites to see what happened. Honestly, it was the classified ads. When Craigslist hit the scene, Craigslist murdered newspapers. Newspapers made their money from when you had a garage sale. You would pay the newspaper to run a little ad about your garage sale, and then that turned over to Craigslist. They took care of that, and newspapers have never been the same. Radio got replaced by Spotify, right? TV, mostly by things like Twitter. We can't beat Twitter in the amount of speed in which things are happening because we have newscasts that can only happen at certain times during the day. I think we got a temporary break with Donald Trump. People are now watching television some more to see, oh God, what did he do? They are subscribing to the New York Times in ways that they have never done in the past. So weirdly, Donald Trump has helped the media a great deal. But there's obviously a lot of competition, and I think that's actually a really good thing. I mean, when you look at like the entertainment part of television, Hulu and Netflix and 100 channels on cable, etc., there is so much good television on right now that I could be watching the most amazing show, and you could be watching the most amazing show, and I've never heard of your show. I didn't even know it existed. And I'm watching mine and you've never heard of mine. So we're in this golden age of entertainment, and I think we can kind of see that in media it's working the same way. All right, so this internet and iPhone thing is happening right now, and this is probably the most important thing I want to say to you. And that is the iPhone and the idea that you can get information out of your pocket and find out what the capital of Burundi is, or find out what happened, you know, in Saratoga. Was there an earthquake? Oh my God, hold on. Yeah, everybody's talking about it. There was an earthquake. That's amazing, and that happened in your lifetime. And so you, the young people, will be the very first generation in which you just, of course that's how that works. We can remember when it didn't work that way. You are the first generation in which, and that puts a lot of responsibility on you. I'm not kidding. I think it's one of the most important things that ever happened in all of human development. A computer in your pocket that connects you to the world and tells you everything that's happening in the world instantaneously may be as important as the discovery of fire. And it happened while you were alive, and you're the first generation to have to handle it. And that's really cool. It's like the printing press was invented while you were alive, and you are the first generation that has to deal with that. And there's a tremendous amount of responsibility in handling that and knowing what's real and what's not, and paying attention to the outside world when you should, right? There's huge pressure to, you know, like put your head up and actually see what's going on, etc. Not only can you consume this, I think you can contribute to it. You're all studying with Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Premiere and all that stuff. Continue to study that stuff, continue to contribute to this, because remember, there's a tremendous amount of content that has to be created. Media is in trouble because of the iPhone, but content still has to be created. So there's this beast that needs to be fed, and you can help feed it. All right, so that's the landscape of TV news these days. I want to do one other thing, and I don't like it when adults say, back in my day, and little do you know, and give you kind of advice, those sorts of things. And I give you a little advice your parents might disagree with. But that's why we're here, right? I mean, we're here to hear alternative ideas, right? As you decide what it is you want to do not ever decide what to do based on the money. I promise you, if you do choose to do that, many years from now, you will look back at 2018 and say, there was this guy who came to the high school, and he warned me, do not do anything for the money as you go to your job that you don't like. Don't do it for the money. I have a friend who loved horses when I was growing up, and she had pictures of horses and horse dolls and all that sort of stuff. She now works in Texas helping people, handicapped kids, with therapy by riding horses. And so she's in charge of the entire charity, and they have something like 60 horses. And she's in charge of the teaching. She rides horses every day. She chose something that made her happy as a job as opposed to something that paid her a lot of money. And I guarantee you, if they just stopped paying her, she'd still want to ride horses every day. And those are the sorts of jobs you want to look for. Think of the thing that you like the most to do. If you like to go to Sharks games, going to Sharks games is a job. Obviously, hockey players are a job, but so are referees and coaches and popcorn sellers and ticket takers and the guy who's in charge of the SAP Center and the guy who does the video for the big wall. They have to go to Sharks games. They wake up and they have to go to Sharks games every day. Whatever it is you do on vacation is a job. There are professional surfers, right? There are people who ride roller coasters as a job. They design roller coasters, and then they ride them, and they ride them, and they ride them until it becomes awesome. And that becomes a job. And you are thinking that, okay, those people are lucky. And it's not luck at all. Every adult who does a job they love knows it's not adult. It's not luck. There are two things. Who thinks it's hard work and good grades? Excellent! Okay, you're wrong. Excellent! It's not hard work and good grades. No matter what anybody tells you, it's not hard work and good grades. And it's not where you went to college. Majority of my coworkers, I have the faintest idea where they went to college. It's not hard work. It's not good grades. It's not where you go to college. Those are all important things. But those are not the things that are going to get you the job that you love. It's attitude and it's passion. And I'm sorry that I'm preaching at you, but I've got you for a couple more minutes, and I'm going to preach at you. It's attitude and it's passion. Passion about things makes you good at your job. If you are passionate about horses, you're going to be good at handling horses. If you're passionate about being on television or teaching school, you're going to be good at doing those things. And that, if you're really good at something, makes you a lot of money. Money's great. Money is terrific. But don't make it the reason you do something. Make passion and attitude the reason that you do something, and the money will come. Macklemore, you still listen to Macklemore? What does he say? I've got it written here. Macklemore, make the money. Don't let the money make you. Don't ever do something for the money, because you will hate Monday morning. All right. Who's going to get you that job? Obviously, it's going to be you. Do not ask permission to become the next president of the United States. Do not ask permission to become a fighter pilot. Do not ask permission to become an astronaut. I guarantee if you don't become those things, it's because you didn't give yourself the permission to be those sorts of things. It's your life. You figure out what it is that you want to do and what you're passionate about. It is you who's going to stop you from being the thing that you want it to be. One of the hints I'm going to give you is adults love it when you have a plan. If you want to be something, I want to be a marine biologist, I guarantee you there are adults, somebody knows somebody who knows somebody who is a marine biologist, and they would be delighted to take you out on the boat and show you what it's like to be a marine biologist. Adults are all over that sort of thing. So communicate to people what it is that you want to be in your life, and they will respond, I promise, because adults eat that sort of stuff up. Okay, the second part is the attitude. You guys are showing up at 7:45 in the evening, giving me part of your time and listening to me. You've already got that in the way. You've already got that taken care of. It's showing up on time. It's tucking in your shirt unless you forgot to tuck in your shirt. It's tying your shoes. It's saying yes sir, no sir, and yes ma'am, no ma'am, please and thank you. You guys have already got this sort of thing. Not a single person has been looking at their iPhone this entire time. You've got the attitude down just fine. So, passion and attitude, and you will be good. And that is the end of my sermon. So there. I hope you have some questions or something. If not, that's perfectly fine too. But
are there any questions that you want to ask?
Could you just talk about like how you worked your way up to your current job?
How did I work my way up to my current job? I went to a school, a university that I planned on it, that owned its own network television station as part of its journalism. The one that does that now is University of Missouri. They own an NBC station, and so you're getting real-time, practical experience being at a real television station, which meant I had a tape that I could then send out to television stations saying, I've already done this. I'm just out of school, but I've already done this. And then, in Macon, Georgia, 90 degrees all the time and 100% humidity, carrying my own camera, working the cat show and doing that, and then sending that tape of things I had accomplished up to Toledo, Ohio, which isn't, unless anybody here is from Toledo, Ohio, it's an awful place.
It's an armpit.
Okay. God, I was there for a year. 1 year. And then off to Salt Lake City. And so moving, it's a lot like baseball. You move up and you move up and you move up and you move up. And then you get that 10,000 hours thing, right? Now it's effortless. I mean, I know I just go to my job and it just sort of just happens. I don't even know how it happens anymore. Yeah.
What sparked your interest in television broadcasting? Has it always been there?
Yes, I've never wanted to be anything else in my entire life. I've never been anything else in my entire adult life. I mean, I worked at JCPenney and I scooped ice cream and waited tables and those sort of things in high school and college. I've literally never done anything, and I could not do anything else because it's the only skill I have. True story, I saw it was like a half-an-hour special when I was growing up on the local TV station about how they make the news. Like, they took you into the newsroom and that kind of stuff. As an adult, I now realize that was like a giant commercial. It was a giant promotion for Action 8 News or whatever it happened to be. But I just ate it up. I thought, okay, you don't sit at a desk. You spend the entire time going out and doing interesting things, talking to people, and we talked about that, that locomotive thing. I am constantly like, well, wait, how does that work? Why does that happen? Who is this person? How does this all fit together? And you get paid to do that. That's outstanding. So that's why I did what I did.
Did you ever do any print journalism?
I have not, and not only that, but I'm terrible at it. Obviously, I did it in college. You do all of them. Once you go down one path, it's very hard to pivot in the sense that my articles are too short. I keep everything far too simple. I go into no detail because that's the television education. So I've not been able to do that at all. Yes?
What's your favorite part of your job and the hardest part of your job?
Hardest part of my job is I do the early morning news, and I get up at 2:15 in the morning every day. Every day, except tomorrow, because I don't have to because I was talking to you guys. So you guys gave me, I get up literally 2:15 every day, and that's often. The favorite part of my job is I'm hanging out with my friends, drinking coffee and talking while a camera shoots it, right? I mean, and it's my good friends, and I really enjoy my job, and I swear to you, eager to go to work on Monday morning. Yes?
So because you have to get up that early, do you find yourself not getting enough sleep, or do you have to
I am militant about getting sleep. I actually, and this again will be weird, generally go to bed at about 5:30 in the afternoon. Every day. I'm up like crazy. I had a nap this afternoon. Yeah.
Me too.
Okay, excellent. Yes. I have a big blackout thing on my bedroom, so it's always dark in my bedroom. And you know what? Yeah, honestly, you get used to it. And the other great thing is that I'm out of there at 11 a.m. My job's over at 11 a.m. And so I can do all the things like mow the lawn, go to the dry cleaner on Tuesday that everyone else has to do on a Saturday. And so in a weird way, it's like this little secret that you have. That you get to do all this cool stuff during the day that no one else gets to do. So.
On the Press Seer Show, how do you choose the topics?
90%, 70% are pitched to us. There is an entire profession of PR that say, I want my CEO on your show. And we will work with that PR person because the CEO just wants to come on and talk about their company. That's the last thing we want to really talk about. We'll work with that PR company about what's interesting about this person? What's an issue that we can talk about? The other 30% are people that I notice in the news and say, oh, I'd really like to have that person. But while admitting that 70% of them come to us, hey, can we please be on your show? 5% do we actually ever say yes. We're bombarded with people who want to be on the show. In fact, we're scheduled out through March. Now, we get lucky every once in a while that we just happen to have somebody scheduled for that Sunday, and like some huge issue just pops up right there, and we can talk about it. We've gotten lucky a couple of times. Yes?
So, kind of two-part question. How many people generally work at a studio of your size?
Good question.
And then secondly, based on so many different people doing so many different things, from production, producers, filming, reporting and what have you, do they all have a media-based background, or do you find that people that you work with came from doing something completely different?
I know Mike Inouye, our traffic guy, studied linguistics at UCLA, and somehow rather fell into what he does today. There are about 300 total people, many of whom I've never met because they work entirely different shifts. But between the producers and the writers and the anchors and the reporters and the photographers and the editors and the people that just keep everything running, et cetera, probably about 300. I think most of them do study journalism. It's not something, journalism is very much a skill like welding. It's just something you do and you get good at once you've learned the basics. And so I suspect most of them study journalism or some kind of liberal arts. I actually am a double major English and political science, but we went to lots of journalism classes as well. Yes.
Because you're anchoring all the time, do you still go out and pursue leads about information?
No, and that's a very good question. Not only am I stuck in the studio, But with my shift, there are so many opportunities to, hey, we're just going to get a bunch of people together. We're going to have drinks at 7 o'clock. You ought to come. 7 o'clock? No, I'm not going to go out at 7 o'clock. That's crazy. I do miss, when I pivoted from being a reporter to somebody who was honestly mostly studio bound, I do miss those sorts of things. Can you picture a Caltrain? I don't know why I'm always obsessed with trains. I don't particularly like trains. Can you picture the Caltrain logo in your head, or picture a Caltrain going by? Okay. What color is their logo? Red. What color is the YouTube logo? Red. It's the exact same red. The Pantone number on those are precisely the same, and that's because the founder of YouTube liked the red on the Caltrain train and said, my logo is going to be the same color. And that's one of those things that you just learn when you're just sitting around drinking coffee with the guy, to answer your question, is you learn those sorts of things when you're just sort of like Marissa Mayer, who used to be the CEO of Yahoo. She was at Google as well. Everybody mispronounces her name as Mayer. It's M-E-Y-E-R, which, if you remember the Oscar Mayer commercial, is clearly Mayer, M-E-Y-E-R, right? But then John Mayer came along, who spells his name the same way, and everybody switched it over to Mayer. And it drives her absolutely crazy. For her whole life, everybody got it right, and then but now for the whole life, everybody gets it wrong. It's those little things that you get, to answer your question, when you get to talk to sources and those sorts of things, and I do miss that a lot. Yes?
When people apply to the station to be like the camera people or the behind the scenes people, what criteria do they need?
Very good question. They do generally come from some sort of technical film background, those sorts of things. To be honest with you, our studio cameras are run by robots. Our field cameras are obviously still run by people and always will be. But generally have studied that in college. We do require a 4-year college degree for almost every, as far as I know, every job we do. Not because you need a 4-year college degree, but because you just make a cutoff. And that's, and I don't want to disparage college, and I was talking about it doesn't matter where you go to college. It's totally true. But you just got to go to college to get through the cutoff, because that's the sort of cutoff we make.
I was just curious about like the makeup process, and like, does the studio like make you shave and get a haircut? Or?
Yeah, very good question. You really want to know. It's Laura Mercier and a little bit of Smashbox is what I use. No, they don't make you up. At the network level, there's a person that does it for you, and we'll get a professional makeup artist before photo shoots and things. But mostly, it's just slapping it on with 5 minutes to go before the newscast. And men generally don't have to worry about it. Women do very much have to worry about their hairstyles, because there may have been like a, hey, we're going to put your picture on the side of a bus sort of thing. There are only so many hairstyles that I can have. Right? But women can go through all kinds of different hairstyles, and they do have to get permission to change their hair, because it could be, oh my God, no, we just spent $1 million on posters on bus stops, and you can't change your hair. That was a good question. Yes?
What's unique about reporting in the Silicon Valley?
Oh, that's a good question. How very small it is. I got here in '98, and so I know the guy who knew the guy who worked with the guy who, everybody worked with somebody else in some fashion, and we are just changing the world, right, in Silicon Valley. But it's a shockingly small number of people who are actually doing all of this. It's a few 100,000 at most, right? And in the leadership level, it's far fewer than that. And it's really cool to be in a place. And I know you grew up here, so it may be harder to see. But this is the Italy of the Renaissance. I mean, somebody grew up in Florence during the Renaissance and probably didn't realize at the time they were doing it, right? But that's what this is right now. And that's phenomenal. What a great place to be, and what a great time to be here. Yes?
How did your job as a reporter change as the tech boom and the media was changing over the decade?
Those are two different parts. The tech boom, I came here during the dot-com boom, and then obviously the whole world fell apart in high tech in the early 2000s. The good news about being a reporter is, as long as they can still pay you, you still have a job, in the sense that good news or bad news, you're still reporting. So, hey, Apple's hiring. Hey, Apple laid everybody off. It's still you're still doing the same thing fundamentally. And then the technology thing has just been astonishing. We thought technology was astonishing just a few years ago, never really realizing what the iPhone would do to change everything. We thought the internet changed everything, not having any idea that it was the iPhone that would fundamentally change everything that we're doing. And it's very difficult to understand how to chase that. You could put something on YouTube that could potentially have far more viewers than I'll have in a week, right? That's amazing. All right, going once. Ooh, do we get to draw a ticket?
Yeah, did everybody get a raffle ticket? Every student write their name? Yes, yes. Okay. So we'll pull 8 people. Lucky winner. Vittorio.
Of course.
Last time.
Shows up late.
Ananya. Quinn Dozier.
Of course.
Grace Green. Connor Oaklander. Eileen Bowie. Ben Golko?
Is that 8?
Yeah.
How many do you have?
Sarisha. That is all 8.
May the odds ever be in your favor.
If you could see one of us 4 after, so we can write down your information. And so we can make sure.
Thank you, everybody. Keep up